I still remember the first time I stepped onto this street as a kid, holding my grandmother's hand, smelling the pine trees, hearing the distant hum of lawnmowers. Now, after 8 years away chasing a tech career up north, I was back. And this time, the house was mine. When Grandma passed, she left me her Maple Ridge home, the same one where I'd spent countless summers, where stories were told on the porch, where I learned what family meant. It wasn't just a house, it was a legacy etched into the wood and bricks. I felt the weight of that legacy heavier than ever as I parked my car on the cracked driveway and looked up at the faded paint and creaky porch steps. This place needs work, I muttered to myself, keys jingling in my hand. But it was more than repairs, it was about respect. For Grandma. For my roots. For everything that had brought me here. The neighborhood seemed quiet at first glance. White picket fences, neat lawns, kids biking by. But beneath that calm, something felt off. The air had a tension, a quiet unease I couldn't shake. I caught snippets from passing neighbors, whispers about new rules, about changes that didn't sit right. I shook it off as small-town drama, yet the knot in my stomach tightened. I ran a hand along the gate's rusted iron. Ready for a new chapter, huh? I said softly, trying to summon hope. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I was ready for what lay ahead. Inside, dust motes floated through slanted sunlight. The familiar creak of floorboards welcomed me, but also reminded me that time hadn't been kind. Grandma's framed photos still hung crookedly on the walls, faces frozen in moments long gone. I smiled bitterly, feeling the sharp contrast between past warmth and present uncertainty. A sudden noise from outside caught my attention, a low murmur of voices, the slam of a door. I peered through the window and saw neighbors gathered a few houses down, eyes darting, talking in hushed tones. Something was brewing beneath the surface. Is this really the right move? I asked myself, heart pounding. After everything you left behind, why come back now? But deep down, I knew this was more than just a house. It was a fight waiting to happen. And if Grandma had trusted me with this place, then I had to stand for it, no matter what. I took a deep breath, locked the door behind me, and stepped outside into a neighborhood that was changing fast. Somewhere in the quiet streets of Maple Ridge, my story was about to begin. The gate was nothing fancy, a simple black metal frame with a lock. I triple-checked the permits, the HOA guidelines, everything. Legal, clean, straightforward. I stood back, wiping sweat from my forehead, proud for once to see something done right. Then came the click of heels. Sharp, fast, and angry. Carol Mayfield appeared like a storm on the driveway, eyes blazing. "Excuse me," she barked, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "What do you think you're doing installing that gate without approval?" I raised an eyebrow, calm but alert. "Ma'am, I have every permit. It follows HOA rules." She snorted, stepping closer, fingers jabbed at the metal bars. "HOA rules? That gate violates community standards. You didn't get board approval." I checked. "It's all legal." I kept my voice steady, sensing the storm ahead. Carol's face flushed red. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I am the HOA president. You will remove that gate or face consequences." I sighed inwardly. "I'm not removing anything. This is my property, and the gate stays." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you can defy me? I enforce the rules here. You're making a big mistake." I folded my arms. "Maybe. But I've done my homework." That's when she started pounding the gate, first fists, then heels. "Open this gate." "Now," she screamed, banging and shaking the bars like a woman possessed. Neighbors peeked from windows, whispers rising. I didn't flinch. Inside my pocket, the paper crinkled. A lease agreement, with her name on it, showing she was my tenant. I'd pulled it earlier but hadn't shown it yet. Carol, I said softly, voice low but clear, you might want to reconsider this. She turned, eyes wild, ignoring my warning. Take this down, or I'll make your life hell, she shouted, voice breaking. I caught myself smiling, half amusement, half disbelief. Let's try this again, I said calmly. You pay rent to me. You're my tenant. She blinked, confusion flickering. You don't want to escalate this, I warned. Not today. Her fists trembled, anger warring with shock. I studied her, the fury, the pride, the fear beneath it. A powerful enemy, yes, but one I had an unexpected edge over. Think about it, I said quietly, stepping back. You're standing in front of your landlord's gate, demanding removal. Her mouth opened, closed. No words came. I slipped the paper back in my pocket. The tension thickened, but I stood firm. Sometimes, winning the battle means waiting for the right moment. And that moment wasn't now. Goodbye, Carol, I said. She didn't answer. I locked the gate behind me and walked inside, mind racing, ready for whatever came next. I stepped outside that morning and froze. My gate was covered, literally covered, with violation notices. Big red letters screaming, illegal fence installation, and threats of fines. But the real kicker? The spelling mistakes. Violation, comity, immediate. Whoever wrote these wasn't even trying. I pulled one down, squinting at the crooked letters. $500 fine if not removed immediately. A joke. I laughed aloud, mostly out of frustration. That's when Earl Brower shuffled up from next door, hands deep in his pockets, dry grin on his weathered face. Looks like Carol's got a new hobby, he said, nodding at the notices. Carol Mayfield, I muttered, shaking my head. She's losing it. Earl chuckled. You haven't seen half of it yet. She made me repaint my mailbox twice. Said the blue wasn't neighborhood appropriate. Blue. Imagine that. I smiled despite myself. She's been doing this to everyone? Almost, Earl said, eyes scanning the street. No one dares stand up like you. You're stirring the pot. I'm just tired of the nonsense, I admitted. Thought she was supposed to keep peace, not start wars. Peace? Earl snorted. Carol's idea of peace is everyone bending the rules to her will. I looked around, noticing neighbors peeking through curtains, eyes curious but cautious. For months, no one said a word. Now, maybe, things were shifting. An idea hit me. Earl, what if I took these notices, every last one, and put them up on my fence? Like an art project. Show the neighborhood what she's really doing. He raised an eyebrow. You serious? Dead serious. Turn her attacks into something everyone can see and laugh at. Maybe it'll wake people up. Earl laughed, slapping his knee. That's brilliant. Make her the joke instead of the neighborhood's nightmare. I grabbed the stack of notices, tape in hand, and started posting them along the fence, misspellings and all. I added a sign in shaky handwriting, HOA Art Project, spelling errors included. Neighbors began stepping outside, reading, chuckling, pointing. Mrs. Patterson from across the street came over with her grandkids. Kids, she said, shaking her head, this is why we proofread our work. She turned to me, smiling. Good on you for standing up. I felt something shift. What started as frustration was turning into a kind of resolve. The community was watching, maybe even ready to join in. Later, Earl leaned against the fence, shaking his head with a smirk. You might just be the neighborhood's new legend. I looked at the notices fluttering in the breeze, the laughter echoing around me, and realized that sometimes the best weapon against a bully is turning their anger into your strength. Let them see the truth, I whispered to myself. And let's see who laughs last. The call came out of nowhere, an emergency HOA meeting to vote on my illegal fence fine. I knew Carol wouldn't give up easily. The notice was terse, threatening, and demanding attendance. I showed up, folder in hand, ready. Inside her cramped living room, Carol paced like a caged animal. Only two others showed, Rick Palmer and some elderly woman I didn't recognize. 3 people, out of a 12-member board. Carol glared at me. "We're here to uphold community standards," she said, voice sharp. "Your gate violates rules, and you will pay the fine." I cleared my throat, placing my folder on the coffee table. "Actually, Carol, I reviewed the bylaws. You need at least 60% of the board present to vote on financial matters. That's 7 members, hardly the 3 we have here." Rick shifted uncomfortably. Carol's eyes flickered, frustration breaking through her mask. "I don't care what your bylaws say," she snapped. "I am the president. This vote stands." I opened the folder, pulling out the relevant pages. "Here, let me make this clear." I slid the documents forward. "No quorum means no valid vote." She slammed her fist on the table. "This is an emergency." "Emergency or not," I said calmly, "the rules still apply." "And here," I added, showing the city permits, "are the permits proving the gate's legality." Carol's voice wavered, but she forced a glare. "You're making this difficult." "Only because you insisted on making it a fight," I replied. The room grew tense, silence filling the air. I could see doubt creeping into Carol's eyes. Her rigid confidence was cracking. Later, at home, I pored over HOA bylaws, city regulations, anything I could get my hands on. The more I read, the more I felt empowered. This wasn't just about a gate, it was about standing up to someone abusing power. I made notes, bookmarked key sections, and started drafting emails to a lawyer friend I trusted. If Carol wanted a war, I'd fight it smart and hard. My anger simmered beneath the surface, quiet but burning. How dare she wield authority like a weapon? I'd come home to protect a legacy, not to be bullied. I called Earl that evening. "Carol called a meeting," I said. "Small turnout. She's desperate." He laughed dryly. "Sounds like you got her rattled." "I'm ready," I said. "This fight's legal now. No more bluffing." Earl's voice was steady. "Good. Knowledge is power, friend." As I closed my laptop, I thought about Carol, her fury, her desperation, and felt a strange mix of pity and resolve. She underestimated me, and that was her mistake. The next steps would be calculated, precise. I wasn't just defending a gate, I was defending my home, my family's name, and my right to stand firm. And I would win. I woke up to the smell of rot. Trash, eggs, even dog waste smeared across my gate and porch. I rushed outside, heart pounding. My security cameras had captured everything, the midnight vandalism clear as day. I called Earl right away. "She's crossed a line this time," I said, voice tight. "Trash and worse on my property." Earl sighed. "That's Carol for you. Escalation is her style." Days later, I caught something else on camera, Rick Palmer, her so-called sidekick, looking uneasy while helping her vandalize. His hands trembled as he stuffed toilet paper into my mailbox. I wasn't sure if it was fear or guilt, but I knew something was shifting. One afternoon, Earl came over, shaking his head. "Rick's pulling back. Heard his wife's making him stay out of Carol's mess." I nodded. "Good. Maybe he's seeing the truth." Meanwhile, whispers turned to conversations. Neighbors who once avoided eye contact now shared stories, about paint colors, noise complaints, petty harassment, all tied to Carol's reign. The silence was breaking. I started a neighborhood communication group online. Slowly, people joined, tentative at first, then more openly. The sense of isolation I'd felt began to fade. Then the flyers arrived, Carol's propaganda campaign, calling me a threat, accusing me of tearing the community apart. They looked professional, polished. I braced for neighbors turning against me. Instead, the opposite happened. Mrs. Patterson called me one morning. "Don't let those flyers fool you. We see what's really going on." Martina from 2 houses down put up a sign, "Welcome, good neighbors." It was a quiet but clear message. At the next block party, neighbors pulled me aside. "We've all been through this," one said. "Thanks for standing up." I felt something shift inside, hope, solidarity. I wasn't alone. Still, the weight of betrayal lingered. Carol wasn't just targeting me, she'd poisoned trust in the whole neighborhood. I caught myself wondering how someone so broken could hurt so many. Was it anger? Fear? Something deeper? "Do you hate her?" Earl asked one morning as we sat on the porch. I paused. "I don't know. I'm angry, yes. But there's something sad about it too." Earl nodded. "People lash out when they're scared. Doesn't excuse it, but it explains it." That didn't make confronting her any easier. Each act of vandalism, every cruel flyer, was a test. A challenge to my resolve. But the growing support around me was a shield, a reminder that community isn't just about houses or rules, it's about people standing together. I was learning to fight with more than just legal papers, I was learning to fight with connection, with trust, with hope. And that made all the difference. I heard the sirens before I saw the patrol cars pull up. Twice now, Carol had called 911, crying harassment, claiming I was intimidating her and disrupting the neighborhood. Officer Martinez stepped out first, calm and professional. "We got complaints about suspicious activity," he said, eyes scanning the scene. I met him at the gate. "Officers, this is my property." "What suspicious activity?" Officer Wilson nodded toward the cameras. "We reviewed footage from your security system." I handed over a copy, watching their expressions change as they saw Carol sneaking around at night, dumping trash, smashing mailboxes. Martinez sighed. "This is serious vandalism. You have documented proof." Suddenly, Carol appeared, her face flushed, clutching a tattered baseball bat. "I'm defending this community," she shouted, eyes wild. Martinez stepped forward, calm but firm. "Ma'am, put down the bat and step away." She hesitated, then dropped it with a thud. I could feel neighbors gathering, phones out, recording everything. Wilson spoke quietly to Martinez, who nodded before turning back to Carol. "You're facing charges for property damage and harassment. This behavior has consequences." Carol's face paled. I saw the first cracks of doubt. Later, Earl told me, "You showed them the truth, all documented." Carol's losing ground fast. The next blow came when Carol scheduled a neighborhood meeting to vote me out. I knew it was another power play, but I couldn't ignore it. I spent the days leading up to it preparing, collecting footage, compiling evidence, organizing my thoughts. One evening, Earl leaned in. "This meeting's your chance. Time to show the community who's been telling the truth." I nodded, feeling the weight of it all, the exhaustion, the tension, but also a quiet fire burning inside. On the day, the room filled quickly. Nearly 30 neighbors showed up, phones ready, eyes sharp. Carol entered, armor on, documents, posters, a fierce glare. She started her speech, accusing me of breaking rules, disrupting peace. I waited, then stood and spoke plainly. "Before any decision, you need to see what's really happening." I played the security footage. Carol vandalizing my property, screaming, threatening neighbors. A hush fell over the room. "Is this the leadership you want?" I asked. Whispers of recognition, nods. Carol tried to interrupt. That's out of context. No, I said firmly. It's documented truth. I revealed the lease showing she's my tenant, the source of the conflict. Her face went from shock to disbelief, then silence. I looked around, the mix of anger, sympathy, relief. This wasn't just a fight for a gate anymore. It was a fight for justice and community. I felt the weight, but also the strength of standing for what's right. Carol was unraveling, and I was stepping up. The road ahead was still long, but this night marked a turning point. And I was ready. The community center was packed, neighbors spilling in with folders, phones, and weary eyes. I could feel the weight of their attention. They wanted answers. I wanted to give them truth. Carol arrived late, eyes cold, clutching stacks of papers. She scanned the room, trying to find support. Not many faces smiled back. She started, voice loud and sharp. Nathan Cross has broken HOA rules, installed illegal structures, harassed residents. This community deserves better. I waited, then stood slowly, folder in hand. Before we make any decisions, I said, you need to see the reality. I connected my laptop to the projector, the room quieting as the security footage played. Carol sneaking around at night, dumping trash, smashing mailboxes. Her shouting matches, her tantrums. A few gasps. Whispered acknowledgements. Faces shifted. I clicked to the lease documents, sliding them to the front. And here's something you need to know. Carol Mayfield is my tenant. She's been threatening the person who pays her rent every month. Her composure cracked. I saw her lips tremble. Is this the leadership you want? I asked the room. Murmurs grew louder, some angry, some sympathetic. Carol stood, voice breaking. I lost everything. My house, my marriage. This neighborhood was all I had left to control. I just wanted to matter somewhere. The room fell silent, the anger mixing with a strange sadness. One neighbor whispered, I never knew. I felt a knot in my chest. This wasn't just a fight over a gate, it was about pain, loss, and brokenness. Carol, I said gently, I don't excuse what you've done. But I understand why you fought so hard. That doesn't give you the right to hurt others. She broke down, tears spilling, the tough facade gone. I looked around. The neighbors weren't just witnesses now, they were part of a healing moment. We all want a safe, peaceful community, I continued. That means accountability and forgiveness. Carol, it's time to step back and let us rebuild together. She nodded, wiping tears. The tension in the room shifted, less confrontation, more hope. After the meeting, Earl came over. You handled that well. Not just a fight, but a chance for something better. I nodded, feeling the weight lift slightly. Leadership wasn't just about winning battles, it was about guiding people through pain and change. That night, I thought about power, how it can corrupt or heal. About justice, not just punishment, but redemption. Carol's breakdown was a turning point, not just for her, but for all of us. I was no longer just defending a gate. I was standing at the heart of a community ready to heal. And for the first time since this began, I felt something I hadn't before, hope. Carol's resignation came quietly. No dramatic announcements, no last stands. Just a letter, a packed box, and the slow closing of a chapter one never wanted to open. The neighborhood breathed a collective sigh of relief. Families who'd lived in fear started fixing their fences, planting flowers, hosting barbecues again. I watched Mrs. Johnson rebuild her daughter's playhouse with a smile bigger than I'd seen in months. One afternoon, Earl dropped by, shaking his head with a grin. Feels like the neighborhood's waking up. I nodded. It's healing. slowly but surely. But healing wasn't just about fixing fences. I knew this piece had to last. So I tightened tenant screenings, digging deeper into backgrounds, talking to previous landlords, and making sure new residents understood community expectations. At the same time, I worked with neighbors to form a new HOA committee, transparent, accountable, inclusive. Meetings moved from Carol's living room chaos to organized gatherings at the community center, where voices were heard and concerns addressed fairly. One evening, I stood by my gate, the same one that started all this, and thought about how far we'd come. "Do you think it'll hold now?" Earl joked, walking up beside me. I smiled. "More than just the gate. The neighborhood's holding too." It hit me then, the power of resilience. How a community, battered and broken, could find strength in unity. I thought about the sleepless nights, the arguments, the moments I questioned whether it was worth it. And yet, here we were. Standing together, stronger. Neighbors who once avoided each other now exchanged stories, helped with repairs, shared meals. The street wasn't just a place to live anymore, it was home again. Sometimes, I caught a glance from a passing neighbor, a nod, a smile, and felt a deep gratitude. For their trust, their support, their willingness to rebuild what had been broken. I realized this wasn't just about me or a gate. It was about community, about standing up when things fall apart. About growth, personal and collective. Looking back, I understood how this fight changed me. I'd gone from a frustrated newcomer to someone this neighborhood leaned on. A leader, yes, but also a listener. The lessons weren't easy. Power corrupts. Silence enables. But courage and connection heal. As I closed the gate behind me one evening, I felt a quiet pride. Not just in winning, but in helping the neighborhood reclaim itself. The road ahead would have challenges, no doubt. But with neighbors side by side, I knew we could face them, together. And that made all the difference. The gate still stands. Solid, weathered, and unremarkable to most passing by, but to me, it's a symbol. A symbol of endurance, of rightful ownership, of battles fought quietly but fiercely. I often find myself standing there, fingers tracing the cool metal, thinking about everything that brought me here. How a simple gate became the front line in a war I never expected to fight. This fight changed me. Not just in the way I think about property or rules, but about people. About persistence. About justice. I used to believe justice was a straight line, right against wrong, clear and simple. Now, I know it's messy. It's tangled with fear, pain, and sometimes even compassion. I learned empathy doesn't mean weakness. It means understanding the battles others fight, even if they hurt you in the process. Carol's story wasn't just a cautionary tale. It was a reminder that power corrupts when fear rules, that sometimes the hardest fight is within ourselves. Standing up for what's right isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It's exhausting. But it's necessary. And this neighborhood taught me the true power of community, the way support can turn isolation into strength, silence into a chorus. I'm proud, not just for winning this battle, but for helping rebuild trust and connection here. But I'm also humbled. Because every victory comes with responsibility. Responsibility to listen, to lead with fairness, and to protect the fragile peace we fought so hard for. Looking forward, I know the path won't always be smooth. Challenges will come, new faces, new rules, new conflicts. But I carry hope. Hope born from scars and stories shared over repaired fences and renewed gardens. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: don't be afraid to stand your ground. Fight with knowledge, with courage, but also with heart. Because sometimes, standing up for what's right isn't about loud battles or grand gestures, it's about quiet persistence. About remembering the legacy you inherit and choosing to honor it every day. My grandmother trusted me with this home, with this community. I intend to keep that trust alive. So when I walk past the gate now, I don't just see metal and wood. I see resilience. I see family. I see a future built on hope, vigilance, and the courage to keep fighting, for ourselves and for those who come after. And that makes all the difference.